In 1975, 60 radio stations across America simultaneously banned a single country song. The reason? A simple story about a tiny white pill. But this wasn't just about medication. It was about a revolution that would shake country music to its core. And it was just the beginning. Country music built its reputation on stories of heartbreak, hard work, and hometown values. But beneath the polished boots and gentle twang lay a powder keg of controversy waiting to explode. From the honky-tonks of Nashville to the airwaves of rural America, a battle was brewing between tradition and progress, and it would change the genre forever. The 1960s and 70s marked an era when country artists began pushing boundaries beyond their traditional comfort zones. They weren't just singing about broken hearts anymore. They were tackling divorce, drugs, women's rights, and political unrest. For many radio stations and industry executives, these new topics threatened the very foundation of country music's wholesome image. The Grand Ole Opry, long considered the genre's moral compass, found itself at odds with a new generation of artists who refused to play by the old rules. These banned songs didn't just face resistance, they faced complete blackouts. Radio stations pulled them from playlists, often under pressure from religious groups and conservative listeners. Record stores tucked them away behind counters. Some venues refused to let artists perform them live. Music Row executives threatened to end careers. But something unexpected happened. The harder these songs were pushed into the shadows, the brighter their impact became. The artists behind these controversial tracks weren't trying to destroy country music. They were attempting to make it honest. They saw a changing America, one grappling with Vietnam, civil rights, and a sexual revolution, and believed their music needed to reflect those changes, even if it meant facing the industry's wrath. Their dedication to authenticity would ultimately help transform country music from a regional genre into a powerful voice for social commentary. In small towns and big cities alike, these songs sparked conversations that many weren't ready to have. They challenged listeners to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their communities. From kitchen tables to church pews, debates raged about what country music should and shouldn't say. Some called it rebellion. Others called it revolution, but everyone knew that country music would never be the same. The songs you're about to discover didn't just push boundaries, they shattered them. Each track represents a moment when an artist chose truth over tradition, authenticity over acceptance. Some of these songs launched careers, others nearly ended them, but all of them left an indelible mark on the genre, influencing generations of songwriters and artists who followed. If these songs had the power to divide the nation, imagine what happened when one of country music's biggest stars decided to sing about birth control. Loretta Lynn was about to find out exactly how far was too far. Most country songs in 1975 stuck to familiar themes: love, loss, and pickup trucks. But Loretta Lynn had something else on her mind. Birth control. The coal miner's daughter from Kentucky was about to drop a lyrical bombshell that would shake the foundations of conservative America. The song was deceptively simple. A woman celebrating her newfound freedom thanks to contraception. But in the mid-70s, this wasn't just another country tune. It was a cultural earthquake. The lyrics didn't just hint at the topic, they addressed it head-on. Lynn sang about a wife tired of staying home with another baby while her husband roamed free, finally finding liberation through family planning. Radio stations reacted swiftly. More than 60 of them across the Bible Belt pulled the pill from their airwaves. Program directors called it inappropriate. Religious leaders labeled it immoral. Conservative groups demanded boycotts. Some stations even received threats from local advertisers promising to pull their money if they kept playing it. But something unexpected happened. The controversy only made people more curious. The song became Loretta's biggest crossover hit. While country radio banned it, pop stations started playing it. Record stores couldn't keep it in stock. In small towns across America, women would slip the record under their groceries at checkout, almost like they were buying the actual pill itself. At concerts, they would approach Lynn in secret, thanking her for giving voice to their own unspoken thoughts. The very thing meant to silence the song had turned it into an anthem. Behind the scenes, music executives were panicking. Country music had built its image on traditional family values, selling an idealized version of American life to advertisers and audiences alike. Now, here was one of their biggest stars, not just pushing boundaries, but completely ignoring them. Industry insiders warned Lynn she was committing career suicide. Nashville gossip suggested she'd never recover from this scandal, but she stood firm, insisting she was just singing about real life in rural America. The numbers told the real story. Despite being banned from dozens dozens of radio stations, the pill climbed to number 5 on the country charts. It sold millions of copies, reaching audiences far beyond country music's traditional base. Women who'd never bought a country record in their lives were suddenly playing Loretta Lynn in their homes. College students who normally dismissed country music as conservative propaganda found themselves defending a country song. Years later, music historians would point to the pill as a pivotal moment when country music proved it could tackle serious social issues. Lynn hadn't just survived the controversy, she'd proven that country audiences were ready for more than just safe, sanitized storytelling. She'd opened a door that could never be closed again. In one fell swoop, she'd managed to challenge both the record industry's assumptions about their audience and society's assumptions about country music. While Loretta Lynn was stirring up controversy about women's rights, another country legend was about to take aim at an even more explosive target, the Vietnam War. Merle Haggard's response to the counterculture would spark a cultural divide that's still debated today. In 1969, while protesters filled the streets and flower children preached peace and love, Merle Haggard released a song that would divide America even further. "Okie from Muskogee" wasn't just a song. It was a declaration of war in the culture battles of the 1960s. The opening lines hit like a thunderbolt. "We don't smoke marijuana in Muskogee." In just a few words, Haggard had drawn a line in the sand between traditional America and the counterculture movement. His portrayal of a small Oklahoma town where people still respected the college dean, wore their hair short, and waved Old Glory down at the courthouse struck a chord with millions who felt left behind by the rapid social changes of the 1960s. Radio stations across Middle America couldn't play it enough. The song rocketed to number 1 on the country charts, crossing over to the pop charts and turning Haggard into a spokesperson for conservative values. Politicians started using it at campaign rallies. Military bases overseas played it as a reminder of home. It became more than music. It became a movement. But the backlash was fierce. Anti-war activists saw it as propaganda, supporting the Vietnam War. Folk singers wrote response songs criticizing Haggard's narrow vision of patriotism. College stations banned it, calling it reactionary and dangerous. Peace activists picketed his concerts. The song that made him a hero in one half of America made him a villain in the other. Behind the controversy lay a deeper irony. Haggard himself was more complicated than either side realized. He'd spent time in prison, smoked his share of marijuana, and held views that didn't fit neatly into any political box. Years later, he would admit that Okie was partly satirical, poking fun at both sides of the cultural divide. But by then, the song had taken on a life of its own. The impact on country music was seismic. Okie from Muskogee proved that country songs could be explicitly political and commercially successful. It opened the floodgates for more overtly political country music, forever changing how Nashville viewed controversial topics. Record labels that had once shied away from anything remotely political now actively sought songs that tapped into the cultural zeitgeist. The song's legacy extended far beyond its initial release. It became a touchstone in American culture wars, referenced decades later whenever discussions of patriotism, protest, and musical politics arose. Some music historians argue it marked the moment when country music became permanently associated with conservative politics in the public mind. While Merle Haggard was singing about traditional values, Loretta Lynn was about to return with another song that would shake the establishment. This time she had divorce in her crosshairs, and radio stations were already reaching for their ban buttons. Just when the dust had settled from the pill, Loretta Lynn was ready to push buttons again. This time she tackled another taboo, the scarlet letter of divorce. Rated X wasn't just about marriage ending. It was about the harsh judgment society reserved for divorced women. The song's genius lay in its brutal honesty. Lynn exposed the double standard that haunted divorced women in the 1970s. Every move they made was scrutinized. Every man they talked to sparked gossip. Even a simple cup of coffee could start tongues wagging. The lyrics painted a picture of small-town life that millions of women recognized but few dared to discuss openly. Conservative radio stations immediately deemed it inappropriate for their audiences. The title alone, Rated X, was enough to send program directors into a panic. Some claimed it was too suggestive, despite the song containing nothing explicitly sexual. Others worried it would encourage divorce. Once again, Lynn found her music relegated to the radio blacklist. But this time, something was different. The women's movement had gained momentum, and divorce was becoming more common in American society. Letters poured into radio stations demanding they play the song. Women's groups organized listening parties. Even some religious leaders spoke up, praising the song for addressing the real pain their congregations faced. The recording industry watched in amazement as Rated X climbed the charts despite limited radio play. It reached #1 on the country charts, proving that Lynn's audience would find her music with or without radio support. The song became an underground anthem for divorced women, passed from friend to friend like a secret handshake. Behind the scenes, the controversy sparked heated debates within the country music establishment. Some argued that Lynn was destroying the genre's family-friendly image. Others saw her as the future of country music, an artist brave enough to tackle real issues facing real people. The divide reflected deeper changes happening in American society. Lynn herself remained unfazed by the controversy. In interviews, she pointed out that divorce was a reality in every community, including Nashville's Music Row. Her willingness to address uncomfortable truths had made her more than just a singer. She'd become a voice for women who felt silenced by society's expectations. The success of Rated X marked another crucial shift in country music. Artists began to realize that tackling controversial social issues could actually boost their careers rather than destroy them. The song paved the way for future hits about divorce, proving that country music could handle mature themes without losing its soul. If singing about divorce caused an uproar, imagine what happened when Guy Drake decided to take on America's welfare system. His controversial take on government assistance was about to ignite a political firestorm that would make Loretta Lynn's controversies look tame. In 1970, an unknown singer named Guy Drake lit a fuse that would explode into one of country music's most controversial political statements. Welfare Cadillac wasn't just a song, it was a scathing critique of America's welfare system that would spark outrage across the nation. Drake's lyrics painted a picture that enraged both sides of the political aisle. The song's narrator bragged about living large on government assistance, driving a Cadillac bought with welfare checks while working Americans struggled to make ends meet. The chorus celebrated gaming the system, describing a lifestyle that seemed designed to confirm every negative stereotype about welfare recipients. Radio stations faced an immediate dilemma. Some saw the song as honest commentary about government waste. Others viewed it as cruel mockery of the poor. In urban areas, stations pulled it from rotation, fearing it would inflame racial tensions. Rural stations faced pressure from local politicians on both sides, some demanding they play it, others insisting they ban it. The controversy spread beyond radio. Civil rights groups condemned the song as thinly veiled racism. Social workers argued it promoted dangerous misconceptions about welfare. Conservative commentators championed it as a brave expose of system abuse. What started as a simple country song had become a lightning rod in America's debate about poverty and government assistance. Music industry executives watched nervously as the song gained traction. It wasn't just controversial, it was changing how audiences viewed country music's role in political discourse. Some labels began actively seeking out songs with political messages, while others doubled down on safer traditional themes. Drake himself became an unlikely celebrity. Conservative groups invited him to speak at rallies. Talk shows debated his message. Politicians quoted his lyrics in speeches about welfare reform. But the fame was short-lived. Welfare Cadillac would be his only hit, forever marking him as a one-hit wonder who managed to spark a national debate. The song's impact on country music proved lasting. It demonstrated that explicitly political songs could find an audience, even if mainstream radio wouldn't touch them. Underground networks of listeners emerged, sharing controversial songs through alternative channels. The genre had found a new role as a platform for political commentary. Years later, music historians would point to Welfare Cadillac as a turning point. It wasn't just about welfare. It was about country music's growing willingness to tackle divisive political issues head-on. The song's legacy lived on in countless political country songs that followed, each one pushing the boundaries a little further. While Guy Drake was stirring up political controversy, a young Tanya Tucker was about to shock the nation for entirely different reasons. At just 15 years old, she was about to record a song so provocative that even her biggest fans questioned whether it crossed a line. When 13-year-old Tanya Tucker burst onto the country music scene, she was hailed as a child prodigy. But 2 years later, her recording of "Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone" would spark a controversy that questioned the very boundaries of artistic expression in country music. Written by David Allan Coe, the song was a complex meditation on love and commitment. In any other context, it might have been considered a poetic masterpiece, But coming from the lips of a 15-year-old girl, lines about laying together and dying together took on a different meaning. The industry found itself facing uncomfortable questions about age, innocence, and exploitation in a genre that had always prided itself on traditional values. Radio programmers across the country faced a dilemma. The song's artistry was undeniable, but its suggestive lyrics, sung by a minor, created a moral panic. Some stations implemented time restrictions, only playing it late at night. Others banned it outright, unwilling to risk the backlash from concerned parents and religious groups. Rural stations that had been Tucker's earliest supporters found themselves caught between loyalty to the artist and pressure from their communities. The controversy extended beyond the airwaves. Parent groups picketed record stores carrying the album. Women's organizations questioned the wisdom of having a teenager sing adult material. School boards debated whether to allow Tucker to perform at local events. Even supporters of the song struggled to defend the decision to have someone so young record such mature content. The debate reached national newspapers, with columnists arguing about the boundaries between artistry and appropriateness. Behind the scenes, the debate raged about Tucker's career trajectory. Her management team faced accusations of pushing her to grow up too fast. Industry veterans worried about the precedent it set for other young artists. Nashville insiders whispered about the pressure being put on teenage performers to tackle adult themes for shock value. The song became a flashpoint in discussions about the exploitation of young talent in country music. Yet remarkably, the controversy only seemed to boost Tucker's career. The song shot to #1 on the country charts despite limited radio play. Audiences were captivated by the contrast between Tucker's youth and the mature themes she tackled. Her powerful delivery convinced many that age shouldn't restrict artistic expression. Record sales soared as curiosity drew in listeners who might never have discovered her music otherwise. The recording industry watched in amazement as Tucker's fan base grew. Young girls saw her as a role model of female empowerment, defying traditional expectations about how teenage girls should behave. Adult audiences praised her artistic maturity. Music critics found themselves writing lengthy analyses of the song's poetic merit, moving beyond the controversy to examine its artistic value. The very qualities that made the song controversial also made it impossible to ignore. The impact on country music was profound. The success of "Would You Lay With Me" challenged assumptions about what young artists could handle. It opened discussions about the relationship between artist age and song content that continue today. The controversy forced the industry to confront questions it had long avoided about the treatment of young performers. If a teenage girl singing about love caused such controversy, imagine the reaction when Johnny Cash decided to get real about addiction. His Sunday morning confession was about to take country music to an even darker place. Johnny Cash was no stranger to controversy, but Sunday Morning Coming Down pushed the boundaries of what country radio would tolerate. Written by Chris Christopherson, the song painted a raw portrait of addiction and loneliness that made executives question whether country music was ready for such brutal honesty. The song's power lay in its unflinching depiction of a hangover. Cash's narrator wakes up in his own private hell, watching families walk to church while nursing both a headache and deep spiritual emptiness. No redemption, no moral lesson, just the stark reality of a man drowning in his own choices. The mention of "Wishing Lord that I was stoned" sent radio stations into a panic. Network television executives nearly pulled Cash's performance of the song from his variety show. Advertisers threatened to withdraw sponsorship, but Cash stood firm, arguing that the song's honesty might help others struggling with similar demons. In that moment, he transformed from country star to advocate, using his platform to address addiction when most preferred to pretend it didn't exist. The controversy forced country music to confront uncomfortable truths about its audience. Alcoholism and addiction weren't just big city problems, they plagued rural communities too. Cash's willingness to address these issues head-on resonated with listeners who recognized their own struggles in his words. Letters poured in from fans thanking him for giving voice to their silent battles. Despite initial resistance, the song became one of Cash's signature hits. Its success proved that audiences could handle darker themes when presented with authenticity. Music Row began to realize that addressing real problems might actually connect more deeply with listeners than the sanitized versions of life they'd been pushing. The impact rippled through the industry. Other artists began incorporating more honest portrayals of addiction and mental health in their music. The song helped establish what would become known as the outlaw country movement, where artists prioritized truth over commercial appeal. Cash had shown that country music could tackle society's darkest corners without losing its soul. While Johnny Cash was exposing personal demons, Harper Valley PTA was about to rip the mask off small-town hypocrisy. Jeannie C. Riley's takedown of moral double standards would prove that sometimes the most dangerous songs are the ones that hit closest to home. When Jeannie C. Riley stepped into the recording studio to sing Harper Valley PTA, she wasn't just making a song, she was loading a musical weapon aimed at the heart of small-town America. Tom T. Hall's lyrics about a misjudged single mother taking on local hypocrites would become an unlikely anthem of social rebellion. The story was simple but devastating. A widowed mother receives a letter condemning her miniskirts and wild lifestyle, signed by the PTA. Her response? Showing up at their meeting to expose every member's secret sins. From the deacon's secret drinking to Mrs. Taylor's extramarital affairs, no stone was left unturned. Small towns across America recognized their own dirty laundry in those verses. Radio stations in rural areas found themselves in an impossible position. The song was an undeniable hit, but it also hit uncomfortably close to home. Local PTA members pressured stations to pull it. School boards complained about its disrespectful message, but audiences couldn't get enough of this musical takedown of small-town hypocrisy. The controversy transformed Riley from an unknown singer into an overnight sensation. Harper Valley PTA topped both the country and pop charts, a rare feat that proved controversial songs could reach far beyond country's traditional audience. The song spawned a movie, a television series, and countless discussions about moral hypocrisy in American communities. More importantly, it changed how country music approached social criticism. The song proved you could challenge small-town values while celebrating small-town justice. It opened the door for more nuanced explorations of rural life, where not every story had to paint small communities in a purely positive light. Speaking of challenging authority, Johnny Cash was about to take things even further. His live recording from Folsom Prison would prove that sometimes the most controversial songs come from behind bars. Johnny Cash's Cocaine Blues was controversial enough on its own, a dark tale of drugs, murder, and consequences. But performing it live at Folsom Prison took it to another level entirely. This wasn't just a song about crime, it was being performed for an audience of convicted criminals. The track itself pulled no punches. It told the story of a man who shoots his woman while under the influence of cocaine, then flees to Mexico before justice catches up with him. Radio stations had always been nervous about playing it, but Cash's decision to record it live in prison sparked a whole new controversy. Critics accused Cash of glorifying violence and drug use. Religious groups condemned him for entertaining prisoners with songs about murder. Some radio stations banned not just the song, but Cash's entire prison album. They argued that giving a platform to prison performances sent the wrong message to American youth. But Cash understood something his critics didn't: the raw honesty of performing Cocaine Blues in front of men who lived with the consequences of their own choices added a layer of authenticity no studio could capture. When he sang about the price of crime to an audience of inmates, it wasn't glorification. It was a warning delivered by someone they would actually listen to. The album became one of Cash's biggest successes, proving that authenticity could triumph over moral panic. It forced the industry to recognize that country music could handle darker themes without losing its moral compass. More importantly, it showed that songs didn't need radio play to reach their audience and make an impact. These banned songs didn't destroy country music, they revolutionized it. Each controversy pushed the boundaries a little further, proving that the genre could tackle real issues while staying true to its roots. From birth control to prison walls, these songs forced America to confront uncomfortable truths about itself. They reminded us that sometimes the most important songs are the ones some people don't want us to hear.